Hello there and welcome to my presentation on BCF Publishing. My name is Samuel Keane of SK Consultants. So we begin with the presentation content and the agenda for today. So we will start with a case study reflection where we reflect on BCF's performance in 2016, the underlying strengths and weaknesses moving forward for future growth. We then move on to a departmental breakdown of the two departments which I didn't actually cover in my written report. So we begin with the sales and marketing department. We have two recommendations for the sales and marketing department for improvement. And then we have the finance, admin and HR department. Again, we have two important functional recommendations for future growth. And then we finish with an overview for BCF moving forwards, which covers all the recommendations I've provided across my presentation and written report. We now move on to the case study reflection, where we examine how BCF performed in 2016 relative to the previous year. We start with BCF strengths. So we saw a 16.6% increase in revenue, which alongside the decreased cost per unit led to a widening of the profit margin. And this relative to BCF's competition actually led to an increase in their market share, which although remains very small in a very saturated industry, this increase then becomes more substantial. Moving on to the weaknesses. The weaknesses are more centred around the internal business processes and the lack of an appraisal system and performance-based incentives are something that is very apparent throughout BCF. Although the HR manager, which is a new role, has been tasked with their introduction, we will explore this later on, but there's been a severe lack of productivity. There's also inefficiencies surrounding the design process. Some individual processes within this production department take too long and are actually hindering the productive capacity of BCF as a business. Resolving these issues may allow BCF to publish more books year-round and further increase revenue. There's also an over-concentration of spending on traditional media outlets. Given that the social media manager was introduced this year, and this being a new role, there should be a transition from traditional to digital media, and we will explore this further later on. These are the outlets providing more opportunity in the future, according to outlets like Ofcom and Book Business. On to the departmental recommendations, and we start with the sales and marketing department. A performance reflection of the sales function would show increased sales year on year through every sales outlet. Every BCF customer actually saw a raw increase in sales, particularly Amazon though, which would show the way that technology is going. The marketing function, more difficult to analyse, but we actually saw a new role introduced in the social media manager, which would show BCF's long-term business prospects. And we can imagine that the expansion in the customer base would have helped to drive sales. So the first recommendation, and the most important in my opinion from an analyst perspective, would be to develop an interactive website. So the current website is very ineffective in driving sales. It's not interactive and the staff lack the skills required to improve it, which we'll look at later on. An interactive website would more effectively drive sales with direct purchase links. Promotion pages to offers would increase the affordability linking to BCF's mission statement. And there could also be interlinks between the social media pages, which would make the social media manager's role more effective in itself. So the inherent effects upon BCF would be the time lost to training, but this would be very minimal in comparison to the benefits gained. It would also mean reduced work for the admin manager, as you could have direct purchase links, so there would be less interaction with the customers. Finance-wise, there'd be a small cost of training, but with the projected sales in the long run and the preparation for future growth and the benefits to the business, these would be minimal. Internally, you could build a database for the customers, link it to the website. Customers could have accounts on the website and etc. And there'd be better links between the internal departments from marketing to social media and sales. Strategy-wise, you could build a better relationship with customers, offering a better experience. Again, I spoke about the promotions and the discounts. And customers, pretty self-explanatory, but you'd have the opportunity for feedback, discounted purchases, all just benefiting the customer and increasing that experience. A secondary recommendation, slightly less important, can be developed over time. From the case study, there is a definite lack of communication between the marketing manager and social media manager, and these are two people that should be very interreliant upon each other. Perhaps with the interactive website, their communication may develop, but it will definitely have to for the business to grow in the future. Maybe the introduction of cloud technology could allow different departments to have access to the same data and interact with each other a lot easier. So we now move on to the finance, admin and HR department, which is the other department which I didn't cover in my written report. We start with a performance reflection. So the finance manager liaises with outsourced accountants and assists with the admin manager's very excessive workload. The admin manager answers phone calls, organises invoice and runs credit control. Particularly the phone calls and the invoices mean that she's working to a very high capacity and has to deal with very inefficient processes, which we will look at later. The HR manager, a new role introduced in 2016, he's begun setting up performance contracts for staff and is responsible for staff training and development, or lack of in 2016, which again we will look at further in links to my recommendations. The first recommendation, and the most important in my opinion, requires immediate attention, it's very urgent, is the lack of productivity to do with the HR manager. It needs several staff members require training, particularly the admin manager with zero, which would reduce her invoice time and allow her to increase her productive capacity. Performance contracts need to be set up prior to the appraisal system, which I've detailed in my written report. And so the HR manager needs deadlines for these tasks. The effect upon BCF, staff would effectively be more trained, particularly the admin manager. There'll be performance incentives. Businesses using tangible performance incentives actually experience less staff turnover. So given the projected staff turnover of BCF in the future, in the near future in fact, introducing these incentives as soon as possible would actually help this. Financially would be a cost of the training and a cost to the performance incentives, but according to DCR strategies, companies using tangible performance incentives are actually more likely to experience 3 times more revenue growth than other companies. Internally, there'll be increased productivity levels due to these incentives, and particularly a recognised improvement from the HR manager who will be able to log his progress. Strategy-wise, there'll be better quality products, better customer relations through these admin improvements. It would give the admin manager more time to worry about other things rather than invoicing customers and dealing with inefficient processes. Customer-wise, as we just said, the better relationships, but also the higher quality products will help develop trust and develop BCS progress towards their mission statement. A secondary recommendation, also very important and does need to be addressed very quickly, but it does link to the last one, and that's balancing the admin manager's workload. So currently she has the financial director to assist, but given the projected future growth from my written report, the finance manager may have a more substantial role in the near future. Here we have my revenue projections for 2017, following the implementation of my production department recommendations. Potentially look at training or updating of system softwares to increase the efficiency of the admin manager's processes. Potentially the sales manager could take calls directly. This would reduce the workload that the admin manager has to deal with. We have a summary of all my recommendations here. We have the adjustment to the pay rise, adjusting the 10% projected to 5% performance bonus for 2016, and then a further 5% at the end of 2017. We have the appraisal system, which I've obviously previously said is lacking, but that will come with the HR improvements. We have the transition from traditional to digital marketing and the outsourcing of the IT consultant to resolve these system issues, especially with the projected future growth. These are my balanced scorecard recommendations. We then have a breakdown of the departmental recommendations. We have the 2 sales and marketing ones, which I spoke about today. We have the 2 finance, admin and HR ones that I've spoken about today as well. And then we have the 3 production department recommendations from my written report. So we have the different genres, the switch from litho to digital printing, and then the decreased cycle time as well, which again was previously mentioned. So this page can be printed off, kept in your office. You could have red for if they're not tackled yet, yellow for if they're in progress, or green if they've been completed, or you could just simply tick them off. It's completely your decision. So that summarises my presentation for you today. I wish you all the best success in the future, and hopefully lots of future growth, and I look forward to checking in on BCF's progress. Thank you very much.